And it's Thursday morning. It's time for Tom and Shane Business and Politics. We are live, so all the stupid stuff we say will be unedited. So get ready, because who knows what the hell we'll talk about. So, well, before we get started, don't forget to subscribe, ring the notification bell, like us, leave a comment because YouTube likes that kind of stuff. And if you'd like to support us monetarily, and why would you not? Um, there's a link in the description below with all the great stuff that Shane and I will do for you if you support us monetarily. Personally, we'll do stuff for you, believe it or not. So, and we do these on StreamYard. If you would like to make your own videos, just like Shane and I do, I mean, how hard can it be? I mean, we're doing it, and we're old and decrepit and clueless. So,
Well, the great thing here, what the producer, director, and all around amazing Eagleman is telling you, is that we can do a split screen, so you can come
yeah,
on live.
you
We'd
can.
love to have you come on and tell us about your company. We'd like to talk to you about your company and maybe give you some tips on helping your company grow and expand. If you're having personal issues with finance, you could comment, and we'll certainly give you our observations and some advice, which we try to
Yep.
do and have since we started this. And then the other thing too is it's a great way for you if you have a company to generate recognition and clients. We have Money Mike on, about once a month, and we specifically talk about money. But today we want to talk about politics. We don't
Yeah,
do this very often.
we do.
Normally we have no,
Yeah,
normally I have an uncensored topic
yeah,
with that basically is about. I keep saying that I shouldn't stop me, interrupt me,
yeah,
put a finger up when I say you know.
yeah.
Anyway, we usually take a topic that has relevance to what's going on, whether
Mhm.
it's global warming and the aspects of that, things that people haven't talked about and should, price of commodities and so forth. But after the speech a couple of weeks ago,
Hang
the
on, hang
president,
on, hang on. Whoa.
what?
I haven't gotten through the introduction yet.
Oh, I thought you were done. Okay.
No, I just got to the StreamYard part of
Oh, okay.
it because we also write on medium.com. So there's a link in the description below. There's also a link for the description how to get to StreamYard to get a free version of them as well that you can test out or try out. And as Shane jumped right in on, what we want to talk about today is Biden's interview on 60 Minutes, which was on last Sunday night,
Hmm.
right after he averted that rail strike. Oh my God, how lucky are we that we had Biden in the presidency to avert a $2 billion a day rail strike?
Well, first of all, they're Democrats. He's they're supposed to be big union supporters, so
Mm-hmm.
this is not a surprise. And it was not. They talked about, oh, it was 20 hours of solid negotiation. No, it wasn't. They gave them everything they wanted. They get a bonus. They get they get a kickback. They gave them everything that they wanted. To be able to make sure that the trains can continue to flow, because that would only be more disastrous for the Biden economy than what we're already dealing with. But we're seeing the results. We've been dead on this. Our timing has been completely correct. The benefactor of this, of course, has been the Fed. That's trying to lighten its balance sheet. When they are in Wyoming, a month ago, I'm sure he told them all, we have to sell. Got to sell debt. Got to raise the Fed rate. It's not about inflation. It's about your debt and the failure of the Treasury Department to be able to sell it. So since last May, the numbers have been horrific. The weekly auctions of your debt have resulted in less than 30% of what the Treasury's often offered, weekly, particularly on Tuesdays. less than 30% of it being bought. So yeah, it's a really difficult situation for the United States, which is why he's raising the Fed rate to drive up interest rates. Doesn't care about the market, doesn't care about Americans. He just raised it a full 75 basis points. That's 0.75. So it's like 3.25 to 3.5 now. And mortgage rates have jumped to 6.25%. Highest in 40 years. Of course, they got to 21% back in 1980 under Carter, but we'll see where it goes. All right, Tom, you can come back now. Thomas?
Well, the Dow dropped 1,300 points after the inflation report. And we want to talk about a couple of things that Biden talked about, or that
Sure.
I guess 60 Minutes talked about.
Yeah, he changed everything. And,
I know.
You'd think he'd fire the people that keep correcting him, but
Yeah. Well,
not.
anyway, they listed his string of successes. June, he signed a gun safety bill. August, climate change bill, minimum tax on corporations, lower cost on drug prices, student loan forgiveness. What a guy. What's not to like about this Biden guy?
Well, the big problem is that the excuse for, or the cause for, supposedly forgiving debt on student loans, as we all know, was predicated on COVID and a crisis. And then during the interview, he said COVID's over, and we have issues, so we're trying to deal with it. About 450 people apparently are still getting COVID in your country.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, China completely shut its economy down. There's over 100 million Chinese that work, of the 400. So 25% of their workforce is under lock and key. It's intentional. They don't have a COVID problem. We know that because we know the numbers here. So they can't be any different there. But they're trying to do this to the Chinese government's trying to use that with its people as cause to locking them in to shut their economy down because they're they're in a recession. Major. They are already there. And they're watching everything slide. The yuan is going up in price, which they don't want, against the U.S. dollar, and because that makes their products more expensive. So their trading is dropping with other countries. These discussions Xi's having with Putin, and everything is a problem. And everybody seems worried that China wants to spend its money somewhere else. Let them. The Japanese, as we've talked about, did this in the 1980s and got their butt whipped. And China's thinking, if we spend billions in Brazil or Indonesia or wherever, or we find somewhere to dig up more commodities than we have ourselves, let them spend it. It's not a benefit to them. They're tearing down some of these empty cities they built in the last 30 years because nobody's moved in. So
nobody can. Nobody can afford it.
Nobody can afford it, and quite honestly, nobody wants them. Nobody wants to move out of Shanghai and come to some northern city in a desert. I mean,
that's true. Well, to full transparency, Biden didn't say COVID was over. He said the pandemic was over.
Well,
but people are. Yeah, well, no, I understand, but I just want to make sure that our viewers understand that that's what.
Yeah, but the importance of that is not that. That's not the importance. Hey,
who didn't watch it? Wait, I'm talking to people who didn't watch it.
I don't care.
Calm down.
Look,
calm down.
No, it's important because he's predicated his forgiveness on student loans on a crisis. Now it doesn't exist, so there's no reason for him to do that, which means he has to go to Congress to authorize them or have them authorize it. They're not going to do that. I mean, you're less than 50 days away from the election. Americans are already upset. I mean, he's down to 39% approval rating, and it's not the people that approve him. It's it's the over 50% of people that disapprove him, or 39%, give or take, is his base. His base is 32%. And so you're talking about 7% of independents or, undecided in the middle. And when that's the key number. That if it drops below 37 to 35, then the independents and libertarians are walking away. And if they're walking away, you got a serious problem, Mr. Democrat.
Yeah. Well, we've got less than Sorry, man. I'm
Drink some
got a
water.
yeah.
It
I got a
it
thing in
helps.
my throat
I
there.
do
Yeah,
that a lot on
yeah.
the Saturday show because
I didn't bring any with me, so. Uh, but anyway, well, you know, this economy, a lot can happen in the 40 some days till this election.
yeah, it's going to get
Yeah.
worse.
Well, I don't know if it's going to get worse, but
Oh, I
you know,
do. It's going to get a lot worse, and you know,
mm, mm,
the terrible reality is that you know, well, it looks like oil's softening. It's not. It's a
mm,
holding pattern till the election, and then you'll see by Christmas it'll be over 100, and gas will be back over $10. Going to be
mm,
a cold winter in Europe.
mm, yeah,
They're already creating huge changes
mm,
that they've never done before. I mean, they implemented $150 billion immediate tax
yeah,
on the gas deliverers in their
mm,
countries to pay for people because of the profits they're making. See, Germany doesn't produce gas; it just delivers it to people
mhm, yeah,
from whom they buy it. It's
yeah,
sort of like you remember that company that went bankrupt, you know, delivering gas in America. It's a you know, so
yeah.
it's
Enron,
a
yeah,
Enron, yeah, very
mhm,
good. So
yeah,
it's a locked system, and you know, they
mhm,
just pass on the cost of
mhm,
what they're paying for the gas to their customers. Well, now they're saying, well, we want those profits because we don't have any money, which they
mhm,
don't. I mean, some of the Americans are all getting charged up because of the inversion on the Fed rates. I mean, the 20 and
mhm,
30-year uh, bills are dropping to 91 and 95 respectively in face value, while the interest rates are going up 5 to 6% on them. So you may not want to buy a 30-year bond,
yeah,
but you know, a 2-year or 10-year, you're going to make uh, you know, that's where you go.
mhm,
You're going to get a 2 to 7% return on it right now,
mhm.
and you're safe as long as you
Mhm.
know the
That's true.
shift as long as the shift doesn't hit the fan.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Shane mentioned $10 gas. It's he's in Canada and it's ten
I'm
dollars
talking natural
US.
gas. No,
Yeah.
I'm talking
Oh,
natural
natural
gas.
gas. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, I know you do pay $10, or when gas was at its peak, you were paying $10 a gallon
Twelve
in
dollars equivalent.
Canada.
Yeah,
Yeah, twelve
$12
dollars equivalent.
US.
Yeah,
$12 US
right.
equivalent. Yeah, now it's
Yeah,
about down to nine
yeah.
dollars US. Can you
you're so,
imagine?
you're so
We're largest.
lucky.
We're largest producer of oil, and we're the largest importer of oil to the United States every day. And like you think you're upset? Oh my
Yeah, I
God!
was gonna say, you guys are sitting pretty. Why are you paying so much for oil and for gas? Well, you always have. I don't know, and Europe always has.
Yes,
They've
they
always
have.
been higher in gas than we are. So I don't know.
Well, it's the industry, everything in
Yeah.
Canada. You know,
Mhm,
Canada's a great country, a fabulous country
mhm,
club to belong to or live in, but it's
mhm,
all a monopoly. Everything in Canada is a monopoly. Every
mhm.
industry.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're talking about food, you know, grocery stores, communications networks, cell phones, uh,
Yeah. Mhm,
TV, everything, dairy products, meat, you know,
yeah.
all of it, oil. You know, it's all a monopoly, and
Yeah.
it's too bad. But
Well, you got to
you
pay
know,
for that
hopefully,
free health care somehow. So
yeah, right, which is so effective.
I know, right? Yeah, you love it.
Yeah, it's like yeah, it's like a dream come true, right?
Yeah. Don't tell them you're having a heart attack. You'll have to pay for the ambulance.
That's right. You remember I told you that?
I
Yeah,
know you told me that
yeah,
before. So yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Because
we're kind of getting we're kind of going away from
well,
our
no, these are
Biden
all
talk here a little bit,
no, no, no.
but
This is
they're
all
all
relative.
included. They're all included in
That's
this
right.
in this. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. Well, some of the other things. That he pointed out, they threw inflation at him, of course, 40-year high in inflation. And, he's saying, well, month to month, it's only ticked up, that's like saying, well, the unemployment rate was 10%, the highest in 50 years, but it's now 9.9. So what are we complaining about? So,
Well, this is further misconception of
mhm,
what's going on truly in the economy. It's misdirection because of the political situation, and it's confusion because their policy isn't working. So they
mhm,
don't know what to talk about. The reality about inflation, we both know, doesn't include in your country gas or food. So, Americans are going liars all. Inflation is 12 to 15% minimum right now, probably
Yeah,
higher.
at least. Yeah.
They're refusing to admit, and the guy, with palsy, talking to your president on Sunday at 60 Minutes, doesn't even say to him, well, inflation that the government says we have doesn't include food and gasoline. And if you include those, it's like 12 to 15%, Mr. President.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
when the media in your country, like the media in Ukraine, like the media in Russia, like the media in China, is state controlled, which it
Mhm.
is. I mean, your media is state controlled. In
Yeah.
Canada, it's state controlled, right? Same thing.
Mhm.
We all have the same problem. Brazil, state controlled. Turkey. I mean, the
Mhm.
major democracies or dictatorships in the world all control the media. And so, without a media to inform the public
Mhm.
of the truth or transparency, whatever
Mhm. Yeah.
adjective you want to use, people have to discover it from people like you and me, because
Yeah.
it ain't out there anywhere else, folks. But
Mhm.
watch us, listen to us, because we're on the button,
Yeah. We certainly are. So,
and we make it look
yeah. Easy.
That's right.
Get your easy button there.
Yeah,
So,
I got my easy button.
sorry
That's like
about
10
that.
years
Yeah.
old. Yeah, I got that at Staples. Yeah.
Staples. Yeah. There you go.
They
So,
don't sell them anymore, so it's a classic.
I know. Yeah. That thing's gonna be worth some money someday. So,
I don't think
hang
so,
on to
because
it.
I'm not selling that. No matter what it's worth, I'm not
Yeah.
selling it.
Not getting you rid of your easy button. All right.
No,
So,
not me.
yeah.
I'm because I'm easy.
Yeah. Well, the other thing he talked about was China and Taiwan. He said unequivocally, if Russia goes into Taiwan, we're sending troops. And I think some of these people had to maybe back off on that a little bit. But yeah, what do you think on Taiwan? He saw what happened in Afghanistan. He said we're pulling out, and gave the Taliban the opportunity to just ride right in and take over. So, do you think she is thinking the same thing, that he can go into Taiwan and our paper tiger president will sit on his hands while he does it?
Well, here's a quick story. When the Chinese were having their civil war, Mao was fighting General Chiang Kai-shek, and he was the head of the Republican military called the Kuomintang. And when he cornered them, Chiang Kai-shek ran, stole everything, all the jade, all the gold, all the silver, all the art,
Mm-hmm.
and all the stock, and ran off to Taiwan. When I say stock, what happened is his wife was a big visitor to FDR during the China Civil War before World War II, and seeking help and buying military equipment by the sale of Chinese art and silver to the U.S. government. So what she then did was, on top of that, she went and bought stocks on the New York Stock Exchange, a massive amount, particularly stocks that were had dividends. So the Americans have to protect Taiwan, because one of the things that people in the market aren't disclosing to the world or the American people or to investors is that everybody's invested in the US, or had been for this bull market the last 20 years. So this downturn has as much to do with what's going on globally, for people to have access to funds. Europe was a big holder of US stock equities on the Fortune 500, on the Dow, on the Standard and Poor's 500, on the high tech and everything. They've been blown up. Now the Chinese have the same problem. They've been buying up Chinese debt since 1987 to prevent a collapse of the Japanese economy, third or fourth now largest economy in the world. And what they did is, with their balance sheets, they could trade U.S. stocks. So, they started selling their stocks early in the year, because they could see what was coming, in their opinion. So it's not just American investors or fund managers or retirement funds selling stock, or banks. It's global investors, and a lot of that's coming out of Taiwan.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people still think China owns us. Japan actually owns us, I
That's
believe,
right.
Shane. If
That's right.
if I'm correct on that,
You are correct.
that they have
Japan's
more of
got
our,
one.
yeah, they own
They
more of
have
our
more of your
debt.
debt.
Yeah,
1.9 trillion, and China's down to 1.7 trillion. Yeah, so
yeah.
only
So
7.8 trillion of your 30 is held by
mhm,
others, rounded
yeah,
off at 8 trillion.
mm,
So 22 trillion is basically held within your
mm,
country. The Fed
yeah,
has 8. So,
mhm,
you take that down to, to 22
yeah,
minus 8
yeah.
is
Well, the bulk,
14, and
yeah,
then
well,
foreign is Social Security, 4 to 5 is Social Security, down to 9 trillion.
yeah,
And then 9 trillion is held by
mm,
indexes and people
mm.
on fixed income for the interest and so forth.
Yeah. I was going to say the majority of the debt we owe to ourselves. It's in the left
Yeah,
pocket,
it's yours.
and we
Yeah.
need to move it to the right pocket. So yeah,
That's why I've been so concerned about this over the last year, is that this fluctuation or failure for the market to absorb any of this. And so a buyer of last, oh, I froze up. So the buyer of last resort has been the Federal Reserve for the last 20 years,
Mhm.
since the 2008 debacle.
Yeah, yeah. So we've been going on through that. So,
Hmm.
well, the war in
And
Ukraine. The other thing the president said that was kind of interesting. He talked about cutting the debt by $1 billion, or the deficit. I'm sorry, not the debt. The deficit by $1 trillion. He said 1.7
1.3 has been
trillion. Yeah,
bragging about it. Yeah.
one point. How do you do that when you send a boatload of money to the Ukraine? You forgive student debt, not all of it, obviously, but a portion of it. And the other things, the climate change thing, the I don't see how this guy's spending money like it's his own.
Well,
And
that's the other flip side of the Federal Reserve. Their balance sheet's about 12 trillion. They got about 5 trillion in mortgage-backed securities. Again, from 2008, they've been buying from the banks, plus U.S. debt that the banks bought, and then they sell it to the Fed. So the interest that they can get on those mortgage-backed securities, because a lot of them are 20 or 30 years old, they've been getting the Fed.
yeah,
And then the interest on the U.S. debt they hold, which is around 7 to 8 trillion.
mm,
The Fed's created a huge amount of revenue. They're sitting on about 1.3 trillion in cash
right,
that they will be transferring to the Treasury, which would reduce your debt by that amount. So it has nothing to do that Biden's done. He's again misdirecting, lying, whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
But
yeah,
Powell hasn't done it.
yeah.
This was all expected to happen by after the 1st of September.
Hmm.
This is another reason the market is watching it. Yeah, this is why J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citigroup all sat in front of Congress last week and basically told the committees they sat before, uh,
Hmm.
this is not good. We're having a bad, but they're not going to tell them the truth. They all know it. I mean, the guys
Hmm.
that are
Yeah.
asking the questions, they all know it too.
Well, sure.
Quit, it's a quit spending, but they got to spend because they want power. But having said all that, the bottom line is the Fed is sitting on the cash that Biden wants to reduce your debt. But now Powell's looking and saying, I I think
I
I
don't
might
think
want to
so.
keep this. I
Yeah,
think
I
I
may
may
need this.
need it
I mean,
because
yeah.
on this meeting yesterday that he happened to have after raising, the Fed rate, he said all of a sudden a reversal from a year ago where he wanted to sell
Mhm.
you the U.S. debt he was sitting on. Now he made it one comment. I was waiting for it, waiting for it. Someone finally asked him about the Fed's balance sheet, and he said, "Well, we're looking at that, and we're going to expand our balance sheet." Now that of everything that Powell said yesterday, I don't care what you hear on television, folks. You're hearing it here live first.
Yeah.
Powell just told you yesterday how bad this is. Okay,
Hmm.
three kinds of recovery for a recession: a V, down and straight up, which you had under uh, Trump, but Biden destroyed it with what he did when he came in. A U, where you go down, move 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and then move up, or an L, where you go down and that bar just keeps going.
You
And
stay there, yeah.
you could be there for
Yeah.
4 or 5 years, 10 years. It could turn
Mhm.
into a depression. Well, that's
Yeah.
what you're in.
Yeah.
This is an L-shaped
Mhm.
recession. Started in February. The end of the beginning of the recession ended when they had their meeting in Wyoming, because Powell told all these billionaires and everybody else running all these trillion-dollar companies, they may have to follow what you and I recommended, that he
Mhm.
goes to them and sells them all, converts U.S. debt for stock in their companies, for preferred shares, for them to pay
Mhm.
interest to the Fed, which
Yeah.
would look to the American people like they're being taxed. But
Yeah.
that's only relevant if the Fed
Mhm.
pays
Yeah.
the Treasury the money, right? Like,
Yeah.
so this is a great game, and I understand it. You
Yeah.
understand it. We've
Yeah.
talked about it, so we got to get it
Mhm.
out there. We need people to know this.
Yeah, we do. Well, the other thing too, Shane, we've got two sides. You've got the financial side and you got the Fed side. The Fed doesn't seem to change anything. They look at what Greenspan did. They look at what Volcker did.
That's right.
They look at that. But
Bernanke, yeah.
Bernanke, the people, and Yellen also. But looking at the financial side adapts to what happens with the Fed, and the Fed doesn't adapt. They just keep doing the same,
Well, that's
the
right.
same crap.
That's right. Look, the global economy is huge. We talk about the commodities and how big they are, and oil
Oh, yeah.
is the biggest commodity in the world. Okay, fine. What the biggest trading market in the world is, that nobody really has anything to do with except banks and governments, is sovereign debt.
Yeah.
So, what's the result of that? The result of that is interest rates on that debt.
Mm-hmm.
The Fed and the US Treasury does not have anything to do with the amount of interest people gain, or the increase of interest on US debt. That's done by the market. The market determines how
Mm-hmm.
much more. Why? Because they borrow from the Fed at 3.25, and then they have to loan it out and to other people, to make loans, or corporations, to people,
Mm-hmm.
individuals, or companies, and they want 2 to 3% or 4%, depending on the customer's credit.
Yeah.
So that's what drives the price of interest rates up.
Mm-hmm.
So the Fed knows that, Treasury Department knows that, all the politicians, senators, House members of the House, the president, the treasurer, everybody, they all know it. And that's the game that's being played.
Yeah.
So no one wants to. You haven't heard one person say, well, you're raising the bank rate. Well,
Yeah.
indirectly, yes, but he knows that. But it has
Mm-hmm.
nothing. He doesn't care about Americans paying more on their mortgages, or
Yeah.
on their car loans, or on their credit cards. He
Yeah.
doesn't care about the stock market and people's,
Mm-hmm. I know.
people
Yeah.
losing what, $4 trillion now in the last year, since, or 2 year and a half, since Trump took
Mm-hmm.
over.
Yeah.
$4 trillion Americans have lost in their retirement funds and personal accounts.
Yeah.
So he doesn't care
Well.
about any of that. All he cares about is the debt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he's trying to raise the debt so people will rush to America and buy it. Now, quantum easing, QE 1, 2, 3, and 4, started by Bernanke in 2008. This is a real
Mm-hmm.
quick lesson. Got to learn this. Started with Japan in 87 with the crash.
Mm-hmm.
Their stock market was at 36. It crashed to 9. It's never gotten back. The highest it got back was 6 months ago to 29, 28, 29. Now it's crashing again. And they came up with this concept where the banks would buy the debt from the government to leverage their balance sheet so they could buy stock. And it would be the stock market where they would make money, and then they'd hold the debt,
Mm-hmm.
as a gracious honor.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Bernanke did. And every Fed chairman since Bernanke in 2008 has been doing the same thing, using the Fed and its balance sheet to basically hold up the U.S. sovereign debt. That's how scary this is. I mean,
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. They're using they're not coming up with any new tactics, because
no,
the financial side's coming up with all kinds of new things.
that's correct.
But
They
they're
have to.
but they're sitting on on this, like they've got this 2-page playbook, and that's the only playbook they have.
Well, the incredible thing is, I should have checked this, but I'm pretty certain I'm right. One thing that you have to look at that's just astounding. Since the beginning of 2022, the number of IPOs, which I think are either none or less than a dozen. So just to cover myself, I should type it in and check it.
IPOs, initial
In,
public offerings
yeah,
by
the offerings
companies
of new
to go
public,
public.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
initial public offerings of companies to
Mhm.
go public,
Mhm.
literally none,
And sell stock.
or less
And
than a dozen since
yeah.
the beginning of the year. Well,
Well,
that
the thing,
tells you a lot. So,
well, yeah, a lot of these companies are fearful. Gee, if we stick our foot out there and we don't get the money we need to expand, boy, we're dead in the water, so to
well,
speak.
yeah, and not only that, but gee, if we put our foot in the water and we'd raise $1 billion and then stick our foot out there and price it at $32, like
Mhm.
Google did, and it opened at 80, and then went to a
Mhm.
thousand. That's not going to
Mhm.
happen. If you stick your foot in the water,
Mhm.
you've got your foot in a pile of cow shit on land.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the risk you run is you go out at $30 a share and end up at 2 that day. Like
Yeah.
you don't make the billions that you were making before. So yeah, no.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not just the people, the insiders, because they can't sell.
Mhm.
But the people
Yeah.
that buy an initial public offering, they can't sell for 90 days.
Yeah.
So the only people that get to sell are the angel investors that invested over the last 2 to 5 years in this company, and they invested at pennies on the dollar. So they've always been the biggest winner, and that's why these stocks have, this is
Mhm.
why this whole thing will one day be crowned as the earnings per share crash, because they were telling people that stocks trading at 20, 30, 40 times earnings were a buy. Well, they
Yeah.
lied. They lied.
Mhm. Mhm.
They misled people for a long time.
Yeah. Well, that's what's happening there. So, um, well, let's think
What else
about.
did Biden say that you wanted to cover?
Well, I think we pretty well covered everything I can think of. The climate change bill. I mean, that's a ridiculous bill. I mean, that's silly. Uh, it's
Well, it is, because we've covered this.
yeah.
Everyone's talking about electric vehicles. All right,
Hmm.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's EFV, electric flying vehicles.
Yeah.
Look, Morgan Stanley,
Hmm.
$1.5 trillion business in the next 30 years. Over the next
Hmm.
30 years,
Yeah.
1.5 trillion. It's going
Yeah.
to create over 50 million new jobs. These jobs
Hmm.
will be over $100,000 a year jobs. It's going to
Yeah.
replace the car. So don't buy an
Hmm.
electric car.
Yeah.
Buy a used car, drive it for a
Roll it
year,
over.
buy a new
Yeah.
one, sell it, and buy it. Yeah, because I thought it would take 10 or 15 years when we first started
Hmm.
talking about this
Hmm.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
Now they're ready to go.
Yeah.
They're going to be AI, artificial intelligence. I mean, I watched last night on BBC a show about Wi-Fi. Uh, you know, uh,
Hmm.
we're heading towards Wi-Fi, and the amazing thing is that what this allows is AI to communicate with buildings, with cars, with planes, everything. I mean,
Yeah.
so artificial, intelligence driving cars and now flying taxis is not an issue. You and I had a good grind about this,
Hmm.
and you
Yeah.
said, how are they going to communicate with each
Yeah.
other?
I know. Yeah.
And I watched the program last night, and it's Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so Wi-Fi
Yeah.
G generation 5. I mean G5 on Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Hmm.
got mixed up. So generation 5 of Wi-Fi changing the world at the same time that electric flying vehicles will create a whole new market. Now, why is that important? Well, here's why. We talked about the fact there's $1 billion cars on the road right now, or on the globe.
Yeah.
If over the next 30, 40 years, those are taken off and you crunch them, you don't need to be doing any mining. You don't, whatever you're going to need to build the new flying taxis or windmills or whatever you'll get from crunching up and reprocessing all the cars that aren't going to be used.
Yeah.
And
Well, you're still going to have to go after the batteries and all the other stuff. So, but
but I'm just
well,
saying that inadvertently a lot of this will help with the this global warming issue, which of course the left will take credit for, but they're not even smart enough to see it. They should all be talking about it, because if they wanted to make a difference, we're giving them a story to make a difference. But
all right. Well, the takeaways for me from the Biden interview on 60 Minutes, nothing about the border and nothing about fentanyl. Those two were
nothing about his son.
Well, yeah, they talked about his son briefly.
One question.
But briefly, I mean, you could spend an hour on that topic alone if they had talked about it more.
Well, when they lose in November, and they'll lose big, before the Congress changes in January, you watch the media start pressing for impeachment. All of this, I talked to, and a person said, and the Republicans are going to impeach, that's where they're going to go. They're going to try and shove impeachment down the Republicans' throat because of what Biden said, to try and make them look bad. Yeah. So this is going to be good, Tom. I mean, this is better than overtime last weekend in the NFL. Okay, that was a great weekend of overtime.
That was a great weekend, yeah. Well, it's great for us no matter what they do. I mean, no matter what they do, it's stupid. It's great for us being on the being on the radio and being on YouTube and LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook. So we're
StreamYard.
And StreamYard, of course, yeah. So we're happy to be on all those places.
Yeah.
And
multiple platforms. And we don't even have a company behind us. We don't have a major broadcasting company, newspaper. Nobody. Just be us. You and me, buddy. It'd be two of us side by each. As they say.
That's why we need monetary support on Patreon. There's a link in the description below. Take a look.
That's right. Like they say in Montreal, do you want bacon or ham with that? And they say soft eggs side by each.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I never could figure out Canadian bacon. What do you call ham?
It's just it's a smaller loaf. It's the tenderloin of ham.
Oh, there you go. Okay, all right. Well, calling it bacon is I don't know. That's an oxymoron.
That's a marketing ploy.
Must be. All right. So, all right. Well, hey, we want to thank everybody for watching us. Thanks so much. Hey, don't forget the award-winning Tom and Shane. We're on radio every Saturday, 8 to 11 a.m. Mountain Time. You can listen live anywhere in the world, anywhere in the known world, and probably on the moon and other places. KMMSAM.com. Just click listen now. That's all you got to do. There's no sign up. There's no login. There's nothing to join. All you do is click on it and listen. And if you missed any of our past shows, including this one, will be up shortly. Tom and Shane past shows are also at KMMSAM.com. Just click on Tom and Shane's podcast when you go over there. And we appreciate very much you guys tuning in and listening to us. And thanks, Shane, for being here. Thanks for all the great information. And we will see everyone. We'll talk to you on the radio on Saturday, 8 to 11 Mountain Time.
But next Tuesday, we'll see everyone. Yeah.
Next Tuesday, we will see you. And, of course, as always, we'll be live, like it or not. And Linda, thanks, Tom and Shane, very much for that. Thank you very much, Linda, for checking us out. We appreciate it so much.
Total loyal.
Amen to that. All right. That's going to do it for us. So we will see you on the next podcast. We'll talk to you on the radio on Saturday. Thanks for watching.